Why do some people naturally attract others? They seem to possess an invisible gravity. They walk into a room, be it a high-stakes boardroom, a casual networking event, or a simple neighborhood gathering, and everyone wants to talk to them. They have a knack for getting the best promotions, winning the most challenging clients, and building deeply loyal friendships that last decades, all without seeming to tricky move through life with an effortless grace that makes their success look like fate. Meanwhile, there are others who struggle to connect. Their words fall flat, their attempts at conversation feel forced, and their relationships often feel shallow, distant, or purely transactional. They might be brilliant, highly educated, or hardworking, but they consistently miss the mark when it comes to human connection. They are respected perhaps, but rarely truly liked or followed. What is the fundamental difference between these two types of people? What is their secret, and is it something that can be learned? Almost a century ago, Dale Carnegie uncovered the timeless answer in one of the most influential and successful self-development books ever written, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Carnegie was a struggling salesman and public speaking instructor when he realized that his students needed more than just tips on how to speak better. They needed principles on how to interact better. He didn't invent these principles. He simply observed, codified, and organized the behaviors of history's greatest leaders and most successful individuals, from Abraham Lincoln to Theodore Roosevelt and modern business titans. He looked at what they did, and more importantly, how they made others feel. And here is the good news, the central revolutionary promise of Carnegie's work. You don't need innate charm, inherited wealth, or institutional power to master these skills. You just need to understand a few core-changing principles of human behavior. These principles are simply yet profoundly difficult to implement consistently because they require us to get out of our own heads and focus entirely on others. This is not a summary you'll want to pause. To make sure you get this full life-changing playbook, hit the like and subscribe button now and save this video so you can come back to it whenever you need a refresher on the fundamentals of influence. This summary is your blueprint. It is a practical playbook for influence, trust, and lasting, meaningful relationships. We're not teaching you how to manipulate people. We're teaching you how to understand them, and in doing so, how to genuinely earn their cooperation and respect. In this comprehensive guide, we'll break down Carnegie's wisdom into 5 major parts, giving you the practical tools to change the way you interact with the world. 1. Fundamental techniques in dealing with people. This is the foundation, the laws of engagement. 2. 6 ways to make people like you. This is the magnetism, turning acquaintances into allies. 3. How to win people to your way of thinking. This is true influence, leading without argument. 4. How to be a leader without arousing resentment. This is the art of correction, inspiring improvement. 5. Applying Carnegie's principles in the modern world. This is the update, how these timeless truths apply to the digital age. By the end, you'll have more than just a summary. You'll have a structured program for mastering the most crucial skill in life, the ability to deal with people. Part 1. The fundamentals of human connection. Before you can genuinely influence anyone, before you can persuade a client, lead a teamer, build a strong relationship, you need to understand one central, unavoidable truth. People are not logical machines. If you approach interactions assuming that facts and data alone will win the day, you will fail. People are emotional, prideful, and profoundly driven by one single deep-seated psychological need, the need to feel important. The philosopher John Dewey famously stated, "The deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. This desire, this constant driving hunger for significance, is the hidden engine of all human action. It dictates what we buy, who we marry, what career we choose, and how hard we work." If you know how to genuinely respect that need in others, if you can feed their desire for significance, you can win people's trust, loyalty, and cooperation almost instantly. Ignore it and you will create resentment, no matter how smart, talented, or factually correct you are. These foundational principles are the laws that govern all subsequent interactions. Principle 1. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. The first, and perhaps most challenging principle of influence is this: don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Imagine your boss pulls you aside and, without asking for context, simply declares, "Your report was late, and frankly, it was sloppy. You need to do better." How do you react? Do you immediately feel motivated to fix the problem? Of course not. You feel judged, embarrassed, and immediately your mental walls go up. Your first instinct is to defend your position, list the reasons why the report wasn't sloppy, and explain the roadblocks that caused the delay. You stop listening and start arguing mentally or out loud. Carnegie recognized a fundamental psychological truth. Criticism wounds the core of a person's pride. When you attack someone's ego, their ability to reason shuts down, and their emotional defense system activates. Historically, few people who have been harshly criticized, whether in war, business, or relationships, ever admit fault. They almost always justify themselves. Even notorious criminals often see themselves as victims of circumstance. A wiser approach, a technique rooted in genuine curiosity, is to replace judgment with inquiry. Consider the manager who scolded their employee in front of the team for missing a deadline. That public shaming destroyed trust. A leader who understood Carnegie would instead pull the employee aside, maintain privacy, and ask, what challenges made this deadline tough for you? I'm curious what resources you needed that we didn't provide. This shift transforms the conversation from a painful condemnation into a cooperative problem-solving session. Criticism merely points out a flaw. Understanding paves the path to a solution. That's why criticism wounds pride. Understanding opens cooperation. Principle 2. Give honest and sincere appreciation. If the first principle is about avoiding the damage of criticism, the second is about actively building connection through genuine praise. Give honest and sincere appreciation. We are often told not to flatter others, and that is absolutely right. Flattery is cheap, it is insincere, self-serving, and quickly seen through as manipulation. But genuine appreciation is one of the most powerful and underutilized tools in the human playbook. People crave to feel valued, and they are hungry for honest recognition of their efforts. Think about the last time someone noticed a detail in your work, something small that you actually struggled with or put extra effort into. Perhaps a coworker said, "I noticed you stayed late to finish the report, and that detail you added on page 4 really made our presentation stronger." That specificity elevates the praise. It moves beyond the generic, "great job, you're amazing," which sounds like automated filler, and makes the appreciation feel real, earned, and personal. This is the key. Specificity is the hallmark of sincere appreciation. When you are specific, you prove that you are actually paying attention, which is the ultimate form of respect. You are not complimenting the person in general, you are valuing their effort and their contribution. This genuine recognition acts like high-octane fuel for their motivation, making them eager to repeat the behavior that earned the praise. It changes the dynamic from a simple duty to a desire to contribute. Appreciation fuels effort. Fake praise kills trust. Principle 3. Arouse an eager want in others. This principle is the core of persuasion and influence. Arouse an eager want in others. Every action we take, from buying a cup of coffee to choosing a career path, is driven by a desire to satisfy a want or a need. We don't act because of what you want, we act because of what we want. The best way to influence someone, therefore, is to stop focusing on your own needs and start framing your request or idea in terms of their desires, their benefits, and their goals. The classic example involves a fishing trip. You don't bait a hook with cake because you like cake. You bait the hook with a worm because the fish likes worms. People are no different. They are constantly looking for the worm. Consider the common struggle of a parent trying to get a child to study. Telling your child study hard because I said so is a request framed entirely around your authority. It generates resistance. A more effective approach is to frame the request around the child's future desires. When you master this subject, you won't just pass the test. You'll feel confident in class, you'll unlock the next level of complexity, and you'll be one step closer to that dream career we talked about. You are connecting a mundane task to their higher desire for autonomy, competence, and a successful future. Whether you are negotiating a business deal, selling a product, or motivating a team member, the language of influence is always, "Here is how this will benefit you." You become the intermediary who helps them achieve their own goals. Motivation sticks when it aligns with what they want. Part 2, 6 ways to make people like you. It's often said that people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. This is the essence of being liked. You can't force affection or approval. You earn it by consistently making others feel valued, heard, and important. These 6 principles are the fundamental actions that turn simple acquaintances into loyal friends and professional contacts into trusted allies. They are the keys to building genuine charisma and magnetism. Principle 1. Show genuine interest in others. If you want to be liked, you must stop trying to be the most interesting person in the room, and instead strive to be the most interested person in the room. Show genuine interest in others. This means shifting the spotlight entirely away from yourself. Instead of waiting for your turn to talk about your projects, your accomplishments, or your life, you spend your time asking open-ended questions and deeply listening to the answers. People love to talk about themselves, their struggles, and their passions because, as we establish, the deepest human need is to feel significant. By letting them talk, you satisfy that need. Carnegie tells the story of a young professional at a networking event. While others were busy rehearsing their elevator pitches and trying to impress, this young man spent the entire night asking others about their projects, their challenges, and their career paths. He barely spoke a word of his own accomplishments. Yet people who met him universally said afterward, "He was the most insightful and interesting person I spoke to all night." How could someone who said so little be so interesting? Because he gave others the stage. He made them feel brilliant, important, and heard. When you genuinely focus your attention on another person, you are giving them a rare and precious gift in our distracted world, your undivided focus. The resulting feeling is what they remember, not your resume. To be interesting, be interested. Principle 2. Smile. This principle seems almost too simple, but its power is profound and universally applicable. Smile. A genuine warm smile is one of the most powerful and immediate signals in human communication. It communicates warmth, goodwill, and approachability without uttering a single word. It disarms hostility and creates an instant bridge between two people. We tend to trust and like people who signal they are not a threat, and a smile is the universal nonverbal signal of welcome. Think about your daily interactions. You'll remember the barista who smiled and sincerely wished you a good day long after you've forgotten the one who grumbled or avoided eye contact. Even in situations where a physical smile isn't visible, like a phone call, you can hear the smile in the tone of the voice. When your vocal cords are lifted by a smile, your voice becomes friendlier, warmer, and more inviting. A smile is a free gift that produces priceless goodwill. It costs nothing to give, but often creates everything in return: a moment of connection, a relaxed interaction, and a positive first impression. It is the silent greeting that says, "I'm glad to see you and I value this interaction." A smile is free but creates priceless goodwill. Principle 3. Remember names. Forgetting someone's name is an act of neglect. Remembering and using it is a profound act of respect. Remember names. Your name is the ultimate anchor of your identity. To any person, their own name is the sweetest and most important sound in any language. When someone uses your name, especially when they haven't seen you in a while, you feel instantly recognized and validated. It signals that you are not just a face in the crowd or another transaction. You are an individual worthy of their mental effort. Carnegie recounts the stories of powerful figures who made remembering names a discipline, people like Franklin D. Roosevelt, who would take extraordinary pains to correctly remember and pronounce the names of hundreds of people he met. For those who struggle with memory, this must be a conscious effort. A great tip is to write names down immediately in a simple notes app with a small piece of relevant information. Lydia loves hiking and works in sustainable architecture. The next time you see Lydia, not only can you use her name, but you can recall an important detail about her life, multiplying the effect of respect. This level of personalized recall makes people feel truly valued and leaves an indelible mark. Names are the sweetest sound to any person. Principle 4. Be a good listener, be a good listener. This principle is the practical application of showing genuine interest, and it is the single greatest secret to conversational success. Don't just hear the words someone is saying. Listen to the meaning, the emotion, and the context behind them. Be patient, let them finish, and resist the temptation to interrupt or mentally rehearse your next witty comment. When you allow people the full space to talk about themselves and their problems, they will often walk away from the conversation feeling that you are brilliant, insightful, and wonderful, even if you said very little. Imagine a couple on the verge of divorce. They have been arguing for years, each one fighting to be heard over the other. In a therapy session, one partner simply listens without interrupting or preparing a defense for the first time in years. That single act of intentional silence and presence can be more powerful than all the words that came before. It breaks the cycle of defensiveness. Listening is not a passive activity, it is an active act of empathy. It requires focus and self-control. When you become a human-sounding board, you are giving people the ultimate emotional release and validation. They don't just want to talk, they want to be understood. Listening heals wounds, resolves frustrations, and builds deep reservoirs of trust that words alone cannot. Listening heals wounds that words cannot. Principle 5. Talk in terms of others' interests. To rapidly build rapport and connection, you must learn to talk in terms of others' interests. Before you engage with someone, do your homework on what truly excites them. What are their hobbies, their passions, their family's background, or their professional struggles? Having this knowledge ensures that the conversation revolves around topics they genuinely care about rather than the things that simply interest you. President Theodore Roosevelt was a master of this technique. Before guests came for dinner, he would often read up on their personal interests and specialized fields. This allowed him to immediately start conversations about their passions, instantly putting them at ease and making them feel important. His knowledge didn't have to be deep, it just had to be enough to spark their enthusiasm. In the modern world, this is critical in sales and professional interactions. Imagine a salesperson who spends the first 5 minutes talking about your favorite college football team or a specific obscure hobby you share. This creates instant rapport and a feeling of shared humanity. It signals, I see you, I value you, and I've taken the time to connect on a human level before we talk business. Conversations should orbit around their world, not yours, because when people are talking about what they love, they become open, engaged, and receptive. Principle 6. Make people feel important and do it sincerely. The ultimate overarching principle that governs all of human interaction is, make people feel important and do it sincerely. This is the practical, everyday way to satisfy the deepest hunger of the human heart, the desire for significance. This principle isn't about giving false praise. It's about genuinely recognizing the inherent worth of every single human being you encounter and treating them as such. Every person believes on some level that they are important. Your job is to acknowledge that self-perception respectfully. This can be expressed in countless ways. It's the CEO who knows the cleaner's name, asks about their weekend, and offers a genuine word of thanks for their hard work. That small gesture earns more loyalty and goodwill than 1,000 company memos. It's the waiter who treats a table of teenagers with the same respect as a table of VIPs. When you make people feel truly important, you are giving them what they need most. This is not a technique of manipulation. It is a philosophy of respect. Carnegie advised, do unto others as you would have others do unto you, but with an important twist. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them. Recognize their worth, and they will never forget how you made them feel. When you make people feel important, they'll never forget you. Part 3. How to win people to your way of thinking. Making people like you is a powerful start, but it is only the foundation. To truly influence, you need to be able to lead them from their current perspective to your perspective without resistance or resentment. These strategies are not about being right, they are about being effective. They teach you how to introduce a new idea, gently how to guide someone to a conclusion, and how to change minds by protecting the one thing people value most, their egos. The goal is to make your perspective feel like their best possible option. Principle 1. Avoid arguments. You can't win an argument. You may win the point, you may crush your opponent with logic and facts, but you will almost certainly lose the relationship, and critically, you will fail to change their mind. Avoid arguments. When you engage in an argument, you are placing two egos on a collision course. If you prove someone wrong, you attack their intelligence and self-respect. They will naturally harden their position, viewing your victory as a personal defeat. As Carnegie observed, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Consider two friends debating a hot-button topic like politics or business strategy. One friend fires off statistics desperate to be right. The other, feeling attacked, resorts to emotional defenses. They both leave angry, but neither has changed their mind. Now consider a different pair. One friend listens carefully to the other's argument and instead of attacking says, "I see your point, and that's a very valid way to look at it." They then gently introduce their alternative view. They leave with mutual respect, and the second friend's mind is now open, not closed. True influence requires mutual respect. Arguments create friction, empathy, and a willingness to understand create fertile ground for new ideas. Arguments rarely change minds, only empathy does. Principle 2, never say you're wrong. The words "you're wrong" are like a psychological sledgehammer. They are a direct frontal assault on a person's intelligence, judgment, and pride, and they close their ears faster than any other phrase. Never say you're wrong. When you feel the urge to correct someone, stop. Remember, the goal isn't to be accurate in the moment, it's to guide them to your perspective over time. A far more effective and humble approach is to soften your difference of opinion with phrases that protect their ego, such as, "I may be mistaken, and I often am, but let's look at another view," or "That's an interesting take, but have you considered this factor?" By expressing humility and fallibility, first you accomplish two critical things. You disarm their defensiveness, and you model the behavior open-mindedness that you want them to adopt. You are signaling that you are not claiming perfection, but merely offering a different perspective for consideration. This is particularly crucial in a professional setting where power dynamics are involved. A subordinate will never admit you're wrong if you have just cornered them. Protect their pride, and their mind will remain open to what you have to say. Principle 3, admit mistakes quickly. The power of humility cannot be overstated. Admit mistakes quickly and emphatically. When you are clearly in the wrong, the sooner you admit it, and do so enthusiastically, the sooner you disarm your critic and often gain their trust and respect. If you beat them to the punch, you take away their pleasure of criticism. By criticizing yourself first, you leave your opponent with only one noble alternative: to show mercy and forgive you. Imagine a bakery owner who realizes an entire batch of highly anticipated holiday bread was made with the wrong ingredient and tastes terrible. Instead of ignoring it or trying to cover it up, the owner immediately posts a public apology, admits the fault, takes full responsibility, and offers every customer a free perfectly baked replacement plus a store credit. Customers didn't leave angry, they became even more loyal. They saw transparency, integrity, and humility, not incompetence. This applies everywhere. In a personal relationship, the simple phrase, "I was wrong and I'm sorry for how I handled that," can instantly de-escalate a fight that has been festering for days. Humility is the ultimate sign of self-confidence because it shows you are secure enough to be imperfect. Principle 4, begin in a friendly way. The manner in which you start a difficult conversation often dictates its entire outcome. Begin in a friendly way when confronting a serious issue, whether it's an unpaid debt, a broken promise, or a performance issue. The natural human tendency is to rush into accusation. This immediately triggers defensiveness. Instead, a warm, friendly start melts hostility and signals cooperation rather than confrontation. Consider a landlord approaching a tenant who is late on rent. The confrontational approach is, "Why didn't you pay the rent on time? I need that money now." The Carnegie approach is, "I know times can be tough and you've always been a good tenant. Let's sit down and work out a payment solution that works for both of us." The second approach shows empathy and mutual respect, first creating a safe space for problem solving. This doesn't mean avoiding the tough topic, it means softening the approach to the tough topic. A friendly tone demonstrates that your primary interest is the relationship, not simply being right or exerting power. It allows the other person to drop their guard and become receptive to your request. Kindness always beats confrontation. Principle 5, get them saying yes, yes immediately. This technique is simple psychological momentum. Get them saying yes, yes immediately. When engaging in a persuasive conversation, begin by asking a series of questions that the person will naturally answer with a yes. These should be simple, agreeable statements of fact or obvious points of agreement. For example, "We both agree that quality is our top priority, correct?" Or, "You also believe our customers deserve the best service, right?" Every time they say yes, their internal mechanism is subtly aligning with your conversational track. They are developing a psychological habit of moving in the affirmative direction. When you finally present your main point, they are far less likely to shift gears and suddenly say, no. It is much harder both mentally and physically for a person to reverse a direction once they have established a pattern of agreement. You are simply building momentum toward your desired conclusion by establishing points of shared reality and common ground. Small yeses always lead to big agreements. Principle 6. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. This is perhaps the simplest and most overlooked strategy for persuasion. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. When you are trying to win someone to your way of thinking, it is tempting to lay out all your evidence and arguments. But people are far more persuaded by their own voice than yours. When you let people explain themselves fully, their reasoning, their feelings, their frustrations, they often persuade themselves. You should ask open-ended questions that gently guide them toward the conclusion you want, but then you must stop talking. Listen actively, nod occasionally, and encourage them with subtle prompts like, "That's interesting, tell me more about that," or "How do you see that solution playing out?" As they speak, they are effectively venting their resistance and taking ownership of the developing idea. People support what they create. If they articulate the solution, even if you planted the seed, it becomes their idea. They feel valued, they feel heard, and they will fight far harder for an idea they believe they conceived than one you simply handed to them. True influence grows in silence, not in lecture halls. Principle 7. Let the idea seem theirs. Building on the previous principle, the true artist of influence ensures that the idea seems to be theirs. Once the other person has done most of the talking, and you've gently guided them, you must resist the temptation to take credit. People naturally feel proprietary over their ideas. If you can plant the seed of a solution, tend to it with questions, and then let them pull the final idea from the ground and claim it as their own, their commitment to execution will be exponentially higher. This requires a profound lack of ego on your part. In business, this means a manager should never say, "We are going with my new strategy." A master influencer would say, "I really appreciate that idea that Sarah brought up last week about streamlining the process. Let's implement her solution." If you're working with a colleague, you might say, "You know that point you made earlier about needing more customer feedback. That's exactly what this strategy should focus on." You are giving them ownership of the concept. You gain the victory of seeing your plan executed successfully, while they gain the credit and the motivation that comes with ownership. Principle 8. See things from their point of view. The single most powerful tool for dissolving resistance is empathy. See things from their point of view. Before you say a single word of persuasion, you must genuinely and consciously put yourself in the other person's shoes. Ask yourself, why do they feel the way they do? What are their pressures, their insecurities, their goals, and their past experiences? The famous philosopher Kenneth Burke stated that the ability to size up a situation and adopt the attitude of the other person is the secret of success in dealing with people. This isn't just a mental exercise, it fundamentally changes your approach. When you truly understand that a client's hesitation is driven by a fear of looking foolish to their boss, or that your spouse's anger is rooted in a feeling of being unheard, your language shifts from confrontation to compassion. Your approach should be to first acknowledge and validate their perspective before presenting your own. Say, "If I were in your shoes facing the same budget constraints, I would probably be hesitant too. I completely understand your concern." This validation melts the emotional ice. Once they feel understood, they are far more likely to grant you the same respect and consider your point of view. Before asking them to walk in yours, Principle 9. Appeal to nobler motives. Humans may be driven by self-interest, but they also desperately want to see themselves as good, moral, and helpful. Appeal to nobler motives. Everyone has a positive self-image they strive to maintain. When you need someone to take an action, whether it's returning lost money, doing a better job, or following a rule, frame your request in terms of their ethical compass. You are appealing to their higher idealized self, not their petty temporary self-interest. Carnegie provided a compelling example of a landlord who had a tenant refusing to pay for damages to the property. Instead of threatening legal action, the landlord wrote a letter saying, "I know you are a man of character and integrity, and that you pride yourself on keeping your word. Therefore, I am certain that this oversight must be corrected by a man like yourself who values honesty above all else." The tenant, seeing his noble self-image reflected in the letter, immediately paid the damages. He acted not out of fear of the law, but out of a need to live up to the noble reputation the landlord had assigned him. When you speak to the higher self is more likely to respond. Principle 10. Dramatize your ideas. In our noisy, distracted world, a dull idea is a dead idea. To truly persuade, you must dramatize your ideas. Logic and facts alone convince no one. People remember stories, visuals, and demonstrations. You need to make your arguments vivid, exciting, and memorable to cut through the noise. A classic business example involved a company trying to sell a new brake fluid. The salesperson didn't just rattle off statistics about its efficiency. They pulled 2 cups onto the client's desk, one filled with the competitor's fluid, the other with theirs. They put a piece of rubber in each cup and let the client watch as the competitor's fluid slowly began to eat away at the rubber. They dramatized the problem and the solution in a visceral, unforgettable way. In a conversation, this could be using a powerful analogy, drawing a simple diagram on a whiteboard, or telling a short, compelling personal story that illustrates your point. Stop relying on boring spreadsheets and start using theatrical, memorable communication. A vivid story persuades everyone. A boring fact convinces no one. Principle 11. Throw down a challenge when all else fails. And even when things are going well, you can often awaken great effort by activating the innate human competitive spirit. Throw down a challenge. The opportunity to excel, to prove one's worth, to win, and to overcome a perceived hurdle is a powerful motivator. People rise to the occasion when they are challenged, especially when that challenge is tied to a feeling of importance. Carnegie recounts the story of Charles Schwab walking through a mill where workers weren't hitting their production quotas. He didn't yell or threaten. Instead, he simply asked a worker on the day shift how many heats of steel they had poured, and then wrote the number, say 6, on the floor in chalk. When the night shift came on, they saw the number, and without a word worked harder to prove they were better. The next morning, the night shift had erased the 6 and written a 7. Soon the mill was one of the most productive. The challenge was not monetary. It was a simple appeal to their innate desire for superiority. The work itself became a competition. This principle works because it gives people a chance to prove themselves, to feel important, and to achieve distinction. Part 4. Be a leader without causing resentment. Leadership is not about commanding. It is about inspiring. It is the ability to change people's behavior for the better without causing bitterness or hostility. People follow leaders who lift them up, not those who humiliate them. This section deals with the most delicate task of all, correction. How do you point out a fault, change a habit, or demand a higher standard without creating an environment of fear and resentment? The great leader understands that when you criticize or correct, you are essentially asking someone to admit they were wrong, which is a massive psychological ask. The following 9 principles are designed to make correction a positive, growth-oriented experience. 1. Begin with praise. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. If you must deliver difficult news or point out a mistake, the conversation must be framed in a context of appreciation and trust. Starting with genuine praise, not flimsy flattery, shows the person that you value their contribution and that the relationship is sound. The opening of the conversation should look like a compliment, not a condemnation. For example, instead of saying, "Your presentation slides were terrible," start with, "The research and effort you put into the data for this presentation was truly outstanding, and I know how hard you worked on it." By establishing their good performance, first you cushion the blow of the criticism and prove that you see their overall worth. It tells the person you are fundamentally good and this mistake is an aberration. 2. Criticize indirectly. This technique is simple but highly effective. Criticize indirectly. The most common mistake is the immediate use of the word, "but." You did a great job on the sales call, but you missed the chance to close the deal. The word "but" instantly negates everything that came before it. The employee hears, "My great job" means nothing, "I failed." To criticize indirectly, replace the word "but" with "and." You did a great job on the sales call, and if we could focus on strengthening the closing pitch next time, I think we'll land that account. The word "and" implies addition and collaboration, not contradiction and failure. It presents the mistake as a necessary next step in their development, not a devastating error. It is a seamless transition from praise to the area that needs improvement. 3. Admit your own mistakes first. If you are about to criticize someone else, always admit your own mistakes first. This is a powerful act of humility that puts you on the same level as the person you are correcting. It says, I'm not perfect, and I'm not here to judge. I'm here to help. For example, when correcting a young team member on a poor decision, a leader might say, I remember when I first started out, I made the exact same mistake. I completely misjudged the client's timeline, and it cost us a lot of time. Now about this decision you made. By showing that you are not above error, you make the person feel less defensive and more open to listening, realizing that mistakes are a part of growth, not a cause for termination. Humility bridges the power gap and allows the other person to save face. 4. Suggest, don't order. True leadership is about creating partnership and cooperation, not obedience. Suggest, don't order. When correcting or directing, replace imperative statements with questions or suggestions. Instead of, I need you to redo the entire second chapter, try, how would it look if we reorganized the second chapter to focus more on the economic benefits? What do you think about that approach? This technique allows the person to retain their dignity and autonomy. When you give an order, you appeal to their duty. When you ask a question or make a suggestion, you appeal to their intelligence and desire to cooperate. You are inviting them to be a partner in the solution rather than a servant carrying out a command. This simple linguistic shift vastly improves motivation and quality of work. 5. Let people save face. This is perhaps the most fundamental rule of correction. Let the other person save face. Never under any circumstances humiliate or correct a person publicly. Public criticism can cause deep, burning resentment that lasts a lifetime. Even if a person is clearly in the wrong, you must find a way for them to maintain their dignity. If a major mistake has occurred, pull the person aside immediately and speak to them in private. By keeping the criticism between the two of you, you signal that you respect them too much to cause them public pain. You are preserving their reputation with their peers, which is often more important to them than the opinion of their boss. When you allow someone to keep their dignity, they are far more likely to take ownership of the mistake and work harder to prove their worth. 6. Praise the slightest improvement. Motivation is fueled by progress, not perfection. Praise every slight improvement. Most leaders only notice when a problem has been fully solved or when a major milestone has been reached. Carnegie taught that this is a mistake. When you are trying to change a person's behavior or develop a skill, you must praise every step in the right direction. If a person has been chronically late and they are only 5 minutes late instead of 20, notice it. Say, I really appreciate you making the effort to get here earlier this week. I see you are serious about this change, and that means a lot. This positive reinforcement validates their struggle and encourages them to continue trying. When you focus on the growth accelerates. 7. Give a reputation to live up to. If you want a person to exhibit a certain desirable quality, act as though they already possess it. Give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. When you assign a person a noble reputation, you create an expectation that they will feel compelled to meet. You are appealing to their need to see themselves as good and worthy. For example, if you have a team member who is disorganized, instead of calling them sloppy, tell them, I need you to take charge of this difficult, detail-oriented project, because I know you are one of the most reliable and meticulous people on the team. By labeling them as meticulous and reliable, you are handing them a reputation that they will work hard to uphold. They will rise to the expectation you have set for them. 8. Make faults seem easy to correct. When correcting someone, ensure the task or the change doesn't seem overwhelming. Use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct. If you make a mistake sound colossal or the required improvement seem insurmountable, you risk paralyzing the person with fear and self-doubt. You must communicate confidence in their ability to fix the problem. Instead of saying your presentation was a disaster and you need a complete overhaul of your public speaking skills, try, the content was great, we just need to practice a few key delivery techniques. That's an easy fix. I have a simple checklist that will get you where you need to be in just an hour of practice. By calling the problem easy to fix, you inject hope and confidence, motivating them to take the first step. 9. Make them glad to do it. The ultimate goal of leadership is to create willing, motivated followers. Make the other person glad to do the thing you suggest. When directing someone to perform a task, you must frame the task in terms of a benefit that appeals directly to their wants, using the principles established in Part 1. You must answer the question, what's in it for me? If you need a low-level employee to take on a complex, tedious project, don't just say, it has to get done. Instead, frame it as, I'm putting you on this project because it's a high-visibility piece of work that the executives will see, and it will be your chance to demonstrate your ability to handle a complex portfolio, which will be critical for your next promotion. You are connecting the boring task to their deeply felt desire for advancement, significance, and recognition. You have made them glad to do it. Part 5. Applying Carnegie in Today's World. Dale Carnegie's book was published in 1936, A World of Telephone Operators, Handwritten Letters, and Door-to-Door Salesmen. Yet here we are nearly a century later in a hyperconnected digital age, dominated by social media, instant messaging, and remote work, and these principles don't just endure, they matter more than ever. The technology has evolved, but the human heart has not. The basic psychological needs for significance, appreciation, and connection are amplified by the digital echo chamber. In fact, many of the failures of modern communication, the social media arguments, the rude emails, the impersonal customer service, stem directly from the wholesale violation of Carnegie's principles. The principles in action, the modern update, in business and networking, listening over pitching, the modern networking event is often a contest of elevator pitches with everyone vying to talk about themselves. The Carnegie principle of show genuine interest in others cuts through this noise. The most successful networkers in the 21/text century are those who spend their time asking questions and listening, turning the focus away from their own personal brand and onto the person in front of them. The goal is not to sell yourself, but to make the other person feel like the most fascinating person you've met all day. In relationships, appreciation as a daily practice. In long-term personal relationships, partners often stop practicing give honest and sincere appreciation. We take kindness for granted. The principles remind us that appreciation isn't a bonus, it's maintenance. A marriage or partnership thrives when partners actively notice and verbalize the small, specific efforts made by the other, ensuring that the deepest urge for significance is constantly met. This simple act keeps love alive where neglect can breed resentment. In leadership, managers vs. coaches today as employees leave managers, not companies. This reinforces the entire premise of Part 4, be a leader without causing resentment. A manager who strictly orders and criticizes, indirectly violating, suggests don't order and don't criticize, will face high turnover. A leader who coaches, asks questions, admits their own mistakes, and gives a team a reputation to live up to builds immense loyalty and a high-performing culture. Empathy is the new corporate strategy. In social media and personal branding, influence through value. In the digital realm, we are all influencers. The brands and individuals who grow fastest and build the most loyal audiences are not those who boast the loudest. They are the ones who make their followers feel valued, heard, and important. Make people feel important. The brands that reply to customer comments with warmth and respect create lifelong fans. The creator who asks for and uses feedback, let the idea seem theirs, fosters a community, not just a following. The principle remains the same. Treat people with respect and you'll always win influence. Technology may evolve, but human hearts stay the same. Conclusion: the ultimate secret of empathy. So what is the ultimate enduring secret behind Dale Carnegie's simple yet profound philosophy? It is not a secret formula for manipulation, nor is it a trick to coerce people into doing your bidding. It is a philosophy rooted in the deepest form of human respect, empathy. Influence is not about pushing people toward your agenda. It is about lifting others toward their own success, their own sense of importance, and their own goals. It is about understanding that the other person is driven by the same profound desires that drive you. The moment you commit to living these principles, the moment you stop trying to correct people, stop talking about yourself, and start sincerely appreciating listening and appealing to the noble motives of others, your world will fundamentally change. You will find that the friction in your life disappears. Arguments cease, transactions become relationships. Acquaintances become allies. Master these principles and you'll not only win friends, you'll win trust, loyalty, and the boundless opportunities that come from becoming a person whom others genuinely respect, and want to follow for a lifetime. The greatest work of your life will be the way you deal with people. Begin that work today. If this summary has helped you gain a practical playbook for influence and connection, make sure you subscribe and like this video so you don't miss our next deep dive book summary. We'll see you in the next chapter of personal mastery.